Bridging the Gap, a roadmap to success. Creating, changing, and transforming mindsets to improve the quality of education of our children. Be the change that you wish to see in the world. Gandhi. You and I today are that change to improve the quality of education of our children. But what is a bridge? Every bridge requires a map and a design to negotiate the terrain. What is a bridge? The Tappan Zee Bridge. But a method of getting us from where we are to where we would like to be. It is a pathway to progress that spans the gap and connects us to an advantage. People need bridges because of an express understanding that if we stay put, there's a disadvantage. Now, today, you are my students and I am your teacher. Okay? So this is the first day of class, and here's your new teacher, Manuel Hernandez Carmona, a guy that people call Manny. Okay, are you ready? Okay, here we go. Jehová es mi pastor y nada me faltará. En lugares de delicados pastos, tú me haces descansar. Confortará mi alma, me guiará por senda de justicia, por amor a su nombre. Aunque ande en valle de sombra de muerte, no temeré mal alguno, porque tú estarás conmigo. Tu vara y tu callado me infundirán aliento. Aderezas mesas delante de mí, en presencia de mis angustiadores. Unges mi cabeza con aceite, mi copa está rebosando. Ciertamente el bien y la misericordia de Jehová me seguirán todos los días de mi vida, y en la casa de Jehová moraré por largos días. Now, excuse me. This is the United States of America. This is Manchester, all right? And this is a conference in English. That was Psalm 23 in Spanish. So imagine a student recently arrived from countries from all over the world and having to sit down that very first day in the classroom and listening to a language other than their own. Now, but that's not your situation. That's not my situation. All right? That was not your experience, and it wasn't mine. Interesting. I was born and I grew up in a beautiful town in upstate New York, North Tarrytown. Now, interesting town. Just 15, 18 years ago, they actually changed the name of the town to Sleepy Hollow. Imagine such a town. The great American writer, Washington Irving, had a cottage in the outskirts of Tarrytown. So everything in that town is literature, it's education, it's history, it's culture, it's pride, it's the American culture. Now, the junior high school, Washington Irving. The high school, Sleepy Hollow High School. So that was the town where I was born. I grew up in that kind of town, just like this kind of town, right? Manchester. Now, our students do not have, these English as a second language students, these English language learners, as they're called by the Department of Education, and in Florida, they're called ESOL, English speakers of other languages. These students come from different foreign countries, from all over the world. They're brought up in countries with different cultural heritage. They have strong family values, but with a newfound immigrant experience. So what do we need to do? We need to build bridges. Build bridges. And culturally relevant literature, culturally relevant ideas, and discussions are building bridges. So what's the problem? Are these kids a problem for us? Well, the first problem is language. It's a language that is not English. That's our language, right? The language, English. It's not their language. Second problem, culture. Their culture is completely different. How about society? Society stigmatizes them, okay? Now, let me talk to you a little bit about my experience teaching in New York City, all right? I was a high school and ESL English as a second language high school teacher in New York City 26, 27 years ago. I was very young. I was 25, 26 years of age. And there I was in New York City, late 80s, early 90s, all right? And my audience, my students were ESL, English as a second language students. And there I was teaching Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth. You know what I'm talking about, all right? And all the great American and British writers. And there I am, enthusiastic about what I do, you know, how I'm going to make a difference in these kids' lives. But they're not connecting. They're not making any connections to where I am, to what I'm doing. Classes begin in September. It's early October, and I am getting frustrated. What am I going to do? How are these kids going to make a connection? Now, one day, look what happened. They invited a New York Puerto Rican poet, all right, a street poet, to do a presentation in the library. First thing I thought was, these people got to be crazy. You know, I went to the university, you know, I got my BA, I got my teaching degree, and here I am, and they're inviting a New York City street poet to read to these kids. So we go down to the library, and there are the students, all right, and I'm standing in the back, you know, thinking I'm all that, and there's the poet. He's dressed in white, okay, everything white. He had a music instrument, and I'm like, what is this guy going to do? Come on, this just can't be literature. Now, once again, he started, the title of the poem that he shared that day was Boricua. Okay, I want you guys, remember, you guys are my students today. Repeat after me. Everybody say Boricua. Boricua. All right, so that is the title of that poem. Now, first thing I thought, Boricua is, you know, kind of the native name for Puerto Rican, and I had Vietnamese, Chinese, Hispanics, you know, students from all over the world, and I'm like, I mean, this has nothing to do with that. So he started, you know, chanting the poem. He started moving around. There was a lot of music. Now, this is what we're going to do, all right? What he said was, okay, you guys, the audience, the students that day, we're going to do a chorus, and you're going to be my chorus. Would you like that? Yeah. All right. So the chorus goes like this. I'm going to repeat it a couple of times, and then we're going to practice a little, all right? By the way, the poem is by a great Puerto Rican writer. He died just 3 years ago. His name is Jesus Abraham, Jesus Abraham Laviera, also known as Tato Laviera. Okay, now, so this is the poem. This is the chorus. Listen carefully. First listen, all right? You're listening first. We are a people who love to love. We are a people who love to love. You think you can do that? Sure. Okay. 1, 2, 3. We are a people who love to love. We are a people who love to love. One more time. We are a people who love to love. We are a people who love to love. Okay, thank you very much. Now, that's the chorus. But in between, he used some rap, you know, and I'm going to do that part. All right? I'm going to do that part. So when I do like this, you do your part, you stop, and then I do my part. You got it? Okay, 1, 2, 3. We are a people who love to love. That's beautiful. We are a people who love to love. Okay, we are people who love to love. We love brothers who love to love, respect. The best intentions of friendship. And we judge from this moment on, no matter who we are, if we find sincere smiles, we can be friends. Boricua. We are a people who love to love. Okay, you got it. One more time. We are a people who love to love. And they got a lot of black and white and yellow and red people whom we befriend. That's why we say let there be no prejudice on race. Color is generally colorblind to us. That's what we say. One more time. We are a people who love to love. We are a people who love to love. Okay, thank you very much. Wow, you're a great audience, great crowd. Now, the students got up, they started yelling, they started shouting, and there I am standing in the back, and I'm like, how come I don't get that response in my classroom? You know, what is going on? What is going on? How come I don't get that kind of response? You know, what is it? So I approached the poet. We started talking. We started exchanging views. And I started understanding that I needed to build bridges. Okay? So every once in a while, I used a poem that was culturally relevant, you know, about them. And then I did The Road Less Traveled. I did a short story by a Puerto Rican writer from Georgia called American History. And then I did The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. So I started building bridges and building bridges. Then I moved to Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico, like the perfect setting here, right? I'm in Puerto Rico, and an interesting thing is that I found a lot of resistance to culturally relevant, the discussion and teaching of culturally relevant ideas and issues in Puerto Rico. But you take it one day at a time. You know, one of the things that I've learned through my experience is that bigotry and ignorance can only be confronted with education. And that's what this is all about. Now, so where am I today? 20-something years later. I decided to relocate and go to Florida. That's where everybody's going, right? Okay, so I moved to Florida, but I moved to Florida because there's a very large Hispanic immigrant population moving to Florida. So here I am, a half a century old, thinking I still can make a difference. So I relocate, take my family, and I'm there in Florida. So I teach in a high school today in Central Florida, where we have 2,700 students. More than half of these kids, more than half of them are Hispanic. About 75% are ESOL, English students of other languages. And once again, I find myself in a situation where I have to build bridges. So when we talk about these students, the Department of Education calls them English language learners, right? Also called English as a second language learners. And in Florida and other states, they're also called ESOL, E-S-O-L, all right? They're this is a 2009 study, about 9%. Today, 2014, could be 10%. But take cities such as New York, Los Angeles, Orlando, Miami, Milwaukee, cities with large minority populations. I mean, some of these cities have 25, 30%. I have 136 students in 6 classes. I do college and career prep. 136 students. Out of 136 students, about 100 are Hispanic. All right? But they're reading what? Well, standards-based. What are they reading? They're reading cranks, eccentrics, and individualists. That was my first essay. I'm trying to make sense of that essay still. All right? Okay, there's a crank in all of us. You've heard of that before, right? So I did that essay. And then we did The Village Watchman. And then this week we did Shooting an Elephant by George Orwell. I mean, these are stories and essays that I, as a native, New Yorker, as a native young man, okay, being brought up in this great nation, I can relate to. But these kids coming from these different countries, I don't think so. These are students that are typically in the process of learning English and speak a first language other than English at home. And No Child Left Behind, by the way, is still around. Schools must reduce achievement gaps between these students and the rest of the population. So today, I want to present to you just some alternatives, there are many, many more, that can help not only for public schools, private schools, colleges and universities. We're getting these students constantly, okay? Number one, real alternative. Have students take achievement exams in their native language. Now, that may seem like something wild and crazy, right? But guess what? There's about 13 or 14 states that are already doing that today. 13 or 14. Imagine a student coming in August, September, and a week later taking the SAT, the ACT, the Regents exam, the Florida comprehension, achievement test in English. That's insane. Doesn't make sense. So 14, 15 states of our wonderful, great United States of America have found out that, at least at the first year and a half, let's test them in their native language. Number 2, allow the use of supplementary readings of authors that ELL students can make a connection with. Now, come on. Let's be reasonable here. Okay, let's be reasonable. You have kids from these different countries. Why not provide them with readings, with passages? At least once a semester. Not only during Black History Month or Hispanic Heritage Month. Once a month. Let's get them from where they were to where they want to be. We're constructing. We're building bridges. Going from one place to another. And last but not least, this is only 3 of about 12, but I wanted to share 3 with you today. Encourage the use of the discussion of culturally related issues and literature to boost student interest in reading. I mean, I remember in 1988, I couldn't work with those kids. I was desperate. I was frustrated. My assistant principal told me, why don't you ask them what they want to read? And I'm like, I can't do that. I have a course outline. I have the book. The book. So challenge them. I said, well, so this is 1988, 1989, 1991. You remember those years, right? And so I'm in New York City. I'm looking for society, culture. I'm looking for my surroundings, my environment. When I look at the issues, AIDS, poverty, prostitution, gay, lesbian, education, the positive and the positives, right? And all that. So I put them all on the board. Remember those green boards? I put all those topics on the board. I gave them little papers. You choose your topics. And they started selecting topics. And guess what? Number 1, AIDS. Number 2, abortion. And number 3, prostitution. I'm like, oh my God. I started praying, God, what is going on? So that's what they wanted to do. That's what they wanted to discuss. So, bring those issues to them, to their house. All right? So, here it is. Bridging the gap, right? Just where I started. What is a bridge? But a method of getting us from where we are to where we would like to be. It is a pathway, as I said at the beginning, to progress that spans the gap and connects us to an advantage. People, you and I, everybody in this room, everybody that's listening to me, we all need to build bridges, okay? Because we knew and we know, past tense, present tense, and future tense, that there's an understanding that if we stay put, there's a disadvantage, okay? Every bridge requires a map and a design, okay, to negotiating the terrain. Thank you very much. Bridging the Gap, a roadmap to success.